Jacques Astre. He is a aviation safety consultant. Jacques, good to have you here on the News Hour. Not a lot of details, as we've heard from iGated, but what we do know is that the plane crashed shortly after takeoff, and according to the country's deputy prime minister, the tail of the plane struck the tarmac, the runway, twice before taking off. What does this tell you as an aviation expert?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Looking at some of the flight tracking software, I was able to see that apparently the aircraft did not accelerate immediately starting during the takeoff, and it actually decelerated almost to a stop, then continued to accelerate again, and again not gaining sufficient speed, and then erratically toward the end of the takeoff roll, just before rotation into the air, the aircraft accelerated very quickly, and as soon as it started to gain altitude in the climb, the airspeed started to decrease substantially, which would indicate to me, based on some of the eyewitness accounts in the aircraft, the shaking, the shuddering, change in direction, sounds to me like the airplane could have stalled right after takeoff. Passengers described icy wings, which would suggest that there was possibly ice or frost on the wings. That airplane doesn't do well with frost and ice on the wings. There have been a few accidents as a result of that. The other thing that makes me question the takeoff roll itself right from the beginning is the fact that it accelerated very, very slowly, then almost came to a stop, then continued again and didn't accelerate normally, which would sound to me like it's possible either the engine indications to the pilots were incorrect, and so what they thought when they thought they were reading that they had enough power, in fact, they may not have, and that resulted in a slow acceleration of the aircraft during the takeoff. So it could be bad engine indications, it could be ice on the wings, or it could be a combination of both.
There are a number of factors that can go wrong with fatal air incidents like this. You mentioned improper engine usage, possibly icing on the planes, but a majority of air crashes, aren't they attributed to pilot error? And I don't want to make any connections here, but generally it's pilot error, is it not?
Well, again, the investigation will reveal that. And although that used to be the case, now what they're finding is that human factors plays a major role in accident investigation. And so the question becomes, why did a pilot do something that he or she thought was the right thing, but in fact wasn't? So the first thing you have to consider is, when they were looking at the engine indications, did the engine indications appear correct, but the acceleration wasn't normal and they sensed that? And maybe that's why they came to a stop, but then immediately continued again. And then it seems like they had an extraordinary amount of acceleration during the final end of the takeoff run, which kind of tells me that they were getting bad information and obviously didn't react by basically aborting the takeoff, which would probably have been the better thing to do.
Okay. Jacques, you said that was the situation. When I look at sort of the records of airline safety in the year 2015, 2016, 2017, these were exceptionally safe years. In 2018, we saw a nearly 900% increase in the death toll, close to some 600 people. 2019, we all saw what happened with Ethiopian Air, the 737 MAX 8 crashed there, and now this one. Are we seeing maybe a reversal in the trends? Is that fair to say?
Well, it's not so much a reversal in the trends as much as it is an anomaly in a system which, in the case of the Boeing MAX jet, you had two accidents almost back to back, which dramatically increased the death toll in 1 year. However, having said that, there are a number of factors that have played a role in those two accidents. And although Boeing has taken on a lot of the blame for it, there are other factors that are involved, such as pilot training, the abilities of some of the flight crew members that were involved. They had a history, so there's a lot of different factors. And the other thing is, it all depends as well on the airline training programs themselves. And some airlines have better training programs than others. So all of that is factored in. And of course, when you look at the world statistics, you're getting that whole big number from like ICAO, for example, which represents 193 countries. So that number seems large, and when you take it from year to year, but when you actually look at the numbers, it's really a number based on a very few number of accidents.
Okay.
Now that doesn't help anybody who's involved, but nevertheless, it can be over dramatized and taken out of proportion. And of course, the two airplanes that were involved were the Boeing 737 MAX. So that dramatically, increases the numbers, given the number of people that died.
All right, Jacques Astre, thank you very much for joining us here on the News Hour. On a side note, I love the 747 model you have there back there, the Pan Am, the true queen of the skies. Thank you for your time, for joining us here on the News Hour.